I think one of my foundational personal principles is that, and this sounds really harsh when I say it, but we're just not that special. And I I mean that in the best, like we are special in all of the ways that Mr. Rogers, one of my personal heroes, said that we are, and that we are all unique. But what we experience, what we go through in life is not unique to us. Um, I lost a child. Child loss is not unique, unfortunately, as much as we would like to um, pretend like it doesn't happen. It does. It happens every single day. As much as we would like to um, shy away from disability, their disability should not be this bad word. People live with disability every day, and they live wonderful, beautiful lives. And there's no reason that there should be any shame or stigma attached with any kind of disability. There's all of these different experiences that I have gone through. None of these experiences are unique. So many hundreds of thousands, millions of people across the world over time have gone through this. And the second that I started to talk about it, that I started to write about it in my blog, which has now become a Substack in modern day and age, um, and realized that people can relate to all of this regular life, that these are not unique experiences. The more that we can share and the more honest we can be, the more, yes, it's wonderful to know that I can help someone else by sharing my story, but it also helps me. Like, I am not altruistic in any sense of the imagination. It helps me to know that I'm not alone, that this is not something that I'm experiencing. There is no thought that I have had in my head that someone else hasn't also thought at some point. And so there is great comfort in realizing that there is community to be found, and we're all just sort of stumbling our way through, and the best that we can do is just to keep moving forward and continue to heal in our own ways from our own life's traumas and challenges. As part of my grief journey, I actually wrote um 63,000 words. Essentially, my daughter Adelaide's biography. I wrote the story of her life as part of my therapy before I ever wrote Normal Broken. And so I had that, and for a while I thought that that was the book that I wanted to publish, and I realized that it in time that it wasn't, that that was just something that I needed to do as part of my grief, because one of my biggest fears is forgetting, because as time goes on, inevitably our memories fade. And I was just so terrified of forgetting pieces of her life. So that was, for me, that was beneficial in my healing and processing of her life. So then after Normal Broken, and I'm sort of sitting here thinking, okay, what do I write about next? And I have a list of ideas that of future books, but I had recently read um, a quote from Maggie Smith, from her book, We Can Make This Place Beautiful. And in that, she said that we are all nesting dolls carrying previous iterations of ourselves inside of us. I've sort of butchered the quote a little bit, but you get the sense of it. And that I felt that so keenly, because what I thought my life would look like as a child, just, going to college and getting married and having children and having a career. And, my dad worked for the same company for his entire career. My mother started as a nurse, and then she took care of us, and then she was a therapist, but there was like a general consistency and flow to both of my parents' lives. And my life has been anything but that. It has been my adult life. While my childhood was wonderful and calm and loving and supportive, and I'm so lucky, and I do not use that word loosely. I do feel very fortunate that I had this stable and secure childhood because I think that that childhood is what allowed me to process so much of the chaos and the trauma that I experienced as an adult. And so, reading that quote, I started to think about this book differently because each layer of my life, which um, inevitably becomes a chapter in The Luckiest, and sort of seeing this timeline and how one layer impacts the next, and how a bruise from this relationship still impacted, a previous relationship still impacted my relationship with my husband, and how you can see through these layers, and how, a bump and a scar from one layer will forever be felt in future layers. But the more layers you put on, maybe those earlier layers aren't quite as affected as much, especially if you start to heal them. And, even in a career standpoint, looking at, I was out of college, I was performing as an actress, and then I worked in hospitality, events, and sales. And then I took care of my daughter and got very involved in advocacy. And now I'm a writer and a public speaker. But I look at all of it and I'm like, well, the actress gave me the skills that I needed to do the public speaking that I do now. Events and sales gave me the experience to be a fundraiser and an advocate, and the corporate ideologies that I needed to sit on all of the nonprofit boards that I do. Being Adelaide's advocate and being her caregiver just completely exploded my world perspective, and is the absolute inspiration of everything that I do today. So all of the writing that I do. And so it is, each of these experiences seems so individualized and unique on their own, but every single one of them has contributed to who I am and what I'm doing today. And it was just such a really interesting way to write this story and see that journey. Um, and a lot of it is through motherhood. And it's this idea of pursuit of self. And I think so many parents, and this is not exclusive to mothers, but so many parents, you lose a piece of yourself along the way because so much of your focus is on your children. And how does pursuit of self change over the years? What is important to us? And really trying to find, are we on the right path? Are we doing the right thing? Are we making the most of our lives? And I think these are all questions that so many of us ask. And I just, had a really wonderful opportunity to be able to explore it. So I wanted this book to definitely be more straight memoir, whereas Normal Broken is definitely more prescriptive. It has, I share a lot of my grief journey in there, but it is very much more, here is my experience and here are the nuggets that I hope you pull from it, versus The Luckiest is more memoir where I'm explaining it, and there's absolutely reflection, but I hope that, someone else may take something from a chapter and someone else may take something entirely differently. But I do hope that those nuggets are in there, and that people can pull them out, because I have to admit, I write memoir because I love reading memoirs. I love people and I love learning about them. And less the celebrity memoir and more just the regular person sharing their life experience. And I think I take more from reading personal stories than I do from a traditional self-help prescriptive book. Um, I find more inspiration there. And so I do. I hope that there is a relatability piece, and that people can take some of the lessons that I've sort of sprinkled throughout. Um, be it, thinking of life through inchstones versus milestones, which is something I learned from the disability community. So much of our lives are focused on milestones, these milestone moments. And you know this when you are a young parent, there's the milestones of their first words, of first steps, of, the first day of school. But those milestone moments continue on in our adult lives. It is graduating from high school or college or getting married or having that child. And so much of our culture focuses on these milestones, but along the way to those milestones are all of these little inch stones that we have to, all of these steps that we need to take in order to achieve them. And we tend to gloss over those. In the disability community, none of those milestones are guaranteed. So instead of waiting to celebrate those milestones, there is this idea of celebrating the inch stones along the way as if they are the milestones. So my daughter was non-mobile and non-verbal. But you better believe that if she held her head a little bit stronger one day than the previous day, we were celebrating that. She was in a walker and she took a step unassisted, like one foot to meet the next foot on her own. And I took a video and celebrated and shared it as if it had been her first step, like if she was walking independently. And it's so important. It was a lesson that I took into my grief journey and that I try and embody and think about now as well. In grief, it was okay, I left the house today. I brushed my teeth today. Whatever it is that I was able to do today that I couldn't do yesterday, that is an inch stone and I'm celebrating it. Did I make it through the day without a complete and total breakdown? Maybe not, but I got up. I left the house or I switched from the bed to the couch, whatever it was that day. And we have to celebrate those inch stones because the milestones are too few and far between. And so appreciating every step along the way is it's in a writing world, it is celebrating getting the agent. It is celebrating getting the book deal. It's not just celebrating on the pub day. It's celebrating every step along the way to get to that moment where you have this finished story to share with the world.